Hello, folks. I'm Larry Kudlow. I want to make a quick point this evening. If you ask him, President Joe Biden will tell you how he's more sympathetic to federal oil leases in the wake of skyrocketing oil prices, the Ukraine war, and so forth. He said this several times. But now comes a story. The Biden administration is siding against Native Americans in a crackdown on oil leasing near their indigenous site. Despite heavy opposition from the local indigenous leaders, Secretary Deb Haaland, herself a Native American, is expected to finalize a rule banning oil and gas leasing near the Native American historical site of the Chaco Culture National Historical Park. That's in northwestern New Mexico. Now, in her earlier life, Secretary Haaland was a House member from New Mexico. In banning oil and gas leasing, Ms. Haaland cited environmental concerns and, I quote, legacy, the rich cultural legacy of the region. But wait a minute, the Native Americans themselves are furious. One leader told Fox News Digital that oil companies sure aren't destroying the park, and they have new technology. Now, Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez and Vice President Myron Lizer wrote a letter last year slamming the proposal. The group opposes the Biden administration's rule, saying it would prevent them from collecting much-needed royalties on the land they've held for decades. Another Navajo citizen told Fox, and I'll quote, "We are very poor. It's like living in a third world, no help from the government. A lot of us don't have electricity or running water. I'm for drilling. And she added, people need the money." Now, as we've argued for almost 2 years, the Biden obsession with global warming and their regulatory war against fossil fuels is doing way, way more harm than good. The EPA, Energy and Interior, the White House, all radical climate ideologues. They're exercising a serious form of central planning socialism, and it's inflicting enormous high-cost damage for working families of all kinds, including, as we've seen, Native Americans. And it hasn't done one thing to deal with global warming, which is emphatically not an immediate existential threat. Meanwhile, a recent Wall Street Journal news article notes that the Biden administration has leased fewer acres for oil and gas drilling offshore and on federal lands than any other administration in its early stages, dating all the way back to Harry Truman. President Biden's Interior Department leased 126,228 acres for drilling through August 20, his first 19 months in office. But no other president since Richard Nixon in 1969-70 leased out fewer acres at this stage in his first term. And by the way, as any energy company is going to tell you, getting a lease does not guarantee any drilling or fracking rights, because these very same climate-obsessive federal agencies will find ways to deny permits. Permits are the key. Environmental groups tie up permits in the courts. The Biden administration does its part with their crazy overkill rules, all of which brings me to my last thought. Senator Joe Manchin thinks he's going to get a permitting reform into the continuing resolution, the CR, that's due out September 30th, a couple weeks. But all the House lefties oppose this. And even some Democrats in the Senate, like Ed Markey and Bernie Sanders, oppose this. Meanwhile, Senator Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia and Senator Dan Sullivan from Alaska have a much better approach that would kill red tape, reinstitute regulatory reviews, and not spend a fortune doing it. All 50 Republicans are behind them. So we'll see how it all plays out. But when you get your next electricity bill, which is up 16% from a year ago, or your natural gas-related services, which is up 33% from a year ago, or energy costs in general that are up 24% a year ago, you can thank Deb Haaland and her boss, Joe Biden, because they're doing everything they can to make your life miserable. And that's my riff.